Donald Trump simply can't handle it anymore, and that's why he backed out. There are a couple of things that really get under his skin. First, the booing. Trump knows just how deeply unpopular he is, and he feels it everywhere he goes. No public appearance can be staged well enough by his handlers to protect his ego. He gets loudly booed no matter what. But even more than that, Trump can't stand being seen like this. He craves attention more than anything, but right now, the attention isn't worth it, because when people see him, they see the reality. How frail he looks, how weak he seems, and how obvious his cognitive and physical decline has become. That's why Trump abruptly and very publicly canceled his appearance, and in doing so, he exposed both his declining condition and his massive unpopularity. We'll get into exactly what he canceled, because it's honestly pretty funny, but before that, it's important to understand why this happened, and it starts with the White House panicking over the growing coverage of Trump's cognitive decline. White House calls Daily Beast mentally ill for exposing Trump's decline. Reporters at the Daily Beast have grown accustomed to rude, belittling insults from the White House when they responsibly and politely ask for a response to stories they are writing about the president or his administration. But this week, one of our reporters was called mentally ill for asking a simple question about Donald Trump's bruised hand. We had clearly touched a nerve with a question on the topic that vexes the president more than any other: his health. For almost a year, the Daily Beast has led the way in reporting on an issue that is patently clear to the naked eye. Despite all his prostitutions, to the contrary, Trump, 79, is not a well man. Just this week, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the New Yorker finally seem to realize that the president not only has no clothes, but he doesn't know where he left them. Thomas L. Frerigman, a three-time Pulitzer Prize winner, wrote in the Times on Wednesday that Trump's behavior has grown so reckless that the question must be asked, is America now being ruled by a mad king? On the same day, the Journal's Holman W. Jenkins Jr., a member of the editorial board, suggested that Trump may even be flirting with cognitive decline for all we know. And in the New Yorker on Thursday, Susan B. Glasser had her own diagnosis for Trump of untreated Laura, giving the dictionary definition as excessive and often incoherent talkiveness. These are conditions well known to Daily Beast readers, as we have been highlighting, and we've been highlighting on this show Trump's cognitive problems for much of his second term. But while the president's mental state may be a matter of some debate, his physical condition is clear for all to see. That became clear to the rest of the world and finally to the rest of the media this week when a huge, ugly bruise could clearly be seen on the president's left hand as he unveiled the depleted lineup for his new Board of Peace in Davos. A reporter for the Daily Beast, Catherine Boris, as every good journalist should do, submitted a request for comment to the White House. She asked the White House's press office shared email address whether the president's application of makeup to his hands on the flight back to Washington was in response to growing speculation sparked by images of his bruised hand on stage at Davos. This is the third or fourth story the Daily Beast has written on this. Are you mentally ill? Is the president so successful that you can't find anything else to write about? Said the reply anonymously. The account is a 24-hour operation, but generally those who reply do not identify themselves. It is a veil of anonymity that clearly feels lets them be uninhibited. So clearly, the White House wants nothing to do with questions about Donald Trump's health, which explains why we haven't seen him since he got back from Davos. While Mike Johnson, and of course J.D. Vance, fresh off his very public fight with Laura Loomer, were out speaking at an anti-choice group's event in Washington, D.C., Donald Trump was nowhere to be found. And that's not an accident. He doesn't want to be seen right now. especially after what Gavin Newsom so accurately pointed out, which really cut to the core of why Trump has gone into hiding.
Prime Minister Mark Carney the day before, who talked about, I don't know, in large terms, the middle powers, everybody except for China and the U.S., we had to adapt permanently to a world without American leadership. I guess I wonder, I mean, that's in some sense a pretty anti-American point of view. That's a view that America is gone from the world stage, that whether the next president is J.D. Vance, Gavin Newsom, somebody else, this isn't a deviation, as you said, this is permanent. Do you buy that? Do you buy Carney's point of view?
I thought there was moments, and forgive me, I should be cautious making this statement, I don't want it to be overanalyzed, but when I was listening to the EU president speak, there were moments where I said, that used to be us. I remember that. So am I surprised by what Carney did? Quite the contrary. I thought I had more leaders from the United States quietly saying, not publicly, I'm not saying it publicly, the transcript of that speech saying, wow. Gavin Trump said yesterday, he brought it up. You know everything about Trump because it's what's not in the teleprompter. It tells you everything you need to know about where Trump's head is on things. It was incredibly effective. The markets were more effective. Markets. It's not Mother Nature, thought of most powerful force on earth with Mother Nature, but it's the markets, particularly the Trump administration. Combine that with the comments of Macron, combine that with the EU Commissioner, but the clarity that came from Prime Minister of Canada.
Weakness masquerading as strength. That is Donald Trump. That is who he has always been. That is who he always will be. And it is why when the rubber meets the road and Donald Trump has to face the accountability of the public, he can't stand it. So much so that he just canceled on one of his favorite events. Trump 79 gives deranged excuse for skipping Super Bowl. Donald Trump is claiming he will skip the Super Bowl, not because of the game's anti-Trump musical performers, but because the game is just too far away. The 79-year-old president told the New York Post that he would really like to see the big game set to take place in San Francisco's Levi's Stadium on February 8th, but the flight is just too long. It's just too far away. I've gotten great hands for the Super Bowl. They like me, said Trump. I would go if you know it was a little bit shorter, he added. Trump received a mixed reaction of boos and cheers when he attended the last Super Bowl in New Orleans, which is a 2-hour, 15-minute flight from D.C. San Francisco is about 5.5 hours in. The political intrigue of this year's Super Bowl, though, has centered around its musical guest, Bad Bunny, in Green Day. The Spanish-language sensation will perform the halftime show while the veteran punk band will play the game's opening ceremony. Both Bad Bunny and Green Day are vocally anti-Trump. Before he was booked for the halftime show, Bad Bunny said he wouldn't tour in the United States out of concern that ICE would raid his concerts. MAGA commentators have voiced outrage for months over Bad Bunny's selection, with some even going as far as demand that Bad Bunny be deported. Bad Bunny is, of course, a Puerto Rican and a U.S. citizen. After Bad Bunny was announced in September, Trump decried the move is absolutely ridiculous. He told Newsmax viewers that even though he had never heard of Bad Bunny, he was confident in saying this guy who hates ICE, he doesn't like you. He accuses everything he doesn't like of racism. Bay Area locals. Green Day were announced as the opening ceremony entertainment earlier this week. The band who needled George W. Bush on their 2004 album American Idiot have updated their politically charged songs to reference the Trump administration. In recent performances of American Idiot's title track, they have altered the lyric of "I'm not part of the redneck agenda" to "I'm not a part of the MAGA agenda." Trump criticized the Super Bowl's musical guest, but insisted they didn't factor into his decision to skip the game. I'm anti-them. I think it's a terrible choice. All it does is show hatred. Terrible, he said. Yeah, sure. We're supposed to believe that Donald Trump isn't attending the Super Bowl because he's hard at work on a Sunday. Doing what exactly? Eating Big Macs and watching Fox News? Come on. The real reason Trump isn't going to the Super Bowl is simple. It's being held in San Francisco, and the biggest artists on the planet, one of the biggest bands in the world, and arguably the biggest global artist right now, Bad Bunny, would absolutely humiliate him if he showed up. And honestly, it's comforting to know they'll still embarrass him even without him being there. But Trump knows the truth. If he walked into the home stadium of the San Francisco 49ers, the boos would be deafening. He understands that. That's why he's skipping it. We've already seen how badly it goes for him at sporting events. Remember the Commanders game? The boos were so loud you couldn't even hear him speak. People were flipping him off. Same thing at the U.S. Open. But it's not just the boos. Trump also doesn't want to be seen right now, period. He's deeply insecure about the bruised hand, the slurred words, the obvious cognitive and physical decline. He doesn't want people noticing just how bad it's gotten. Oh, poor Donald. He doesn't want us to see him falling apart, but he is falling apart. Politically, physically, mentally, every possible way. That's the real reason he's not attending the Super Bowl. He's terrified of the boos, and he's haunted by the reality of how weak he's become. Trump has always used sporting events to cosplay as one of the guys, pretending he's tough, relatable, strong. But let's be honest, Donald Trump doesn't know a thing about sports. Other presidents didn't either, and that's fine. Obama actually knew basketball. The Bushes knew baseball. Trump just pretends. Whenever he talks about athletes, it's the same incoherent nonsense. Big guys, strong guys, tough guys. We love the guys. That's not analysis. That's Trump being Trump. And remember when he hosted the Florida Panthers at the White House and said, half joking but not really, wow, these guys make me look weak, but at least I have the U.S. military? That wasn't a joke. When Trump gets booed, he lashes out. He gets embarrassed, and suddenly he's threatening cities, calling for crackdowns, sending force where his ego is bruised. Boo him. And he wants to punish someone. That's what this is really about. His insecurity, his weakness, his fear of being exposed. Trump canceled the Super Bowl appearance because he couldn't handle the reaction. He doesn't want people to see how fragile he is. That's the whole story. It's not deep. It's painfully obvious. A man who feels small tries to make the whole country feel it with him. And yes, he'll be watching from home, hoping people are wondering where he is. Spoiler? They won't be. The boos will still echo in his head. And when Bad Bunny and the rest light up that stage, it's going to make him miserable. And honestly, that's beautiful. We'll keep calling it out on this show. And if you want to support that, hit subscribe, leave a like, and if you made it to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I will see you soon.